Hello, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we'll be doing our July reading wrap up. But before we open the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things books. So I ended up reading 8 books in the month of July, but one of them was an S&P novel, so I won't be talking about it here. And I'm actually pretty happy with myself because I made it through 5 books off my physical TBR, and then I proceeded to buy 4 more books to put on my physical TBR. We love to see it. But let's hop into some StoryGraph stats. My StoryGraph is always linked down below if you want to follow along with my journey. First off, we did hit my book goal for the year, which is 50 books. I hit it in August last year, so I hit it a little early this year. So I'm very happy. My top reading moods for this month were adventurous and lighthearted. I did read a fair amount of fantasy romantasy this month. Then we had mostly medium-paced books, obviously. And most of the books I read were from 300 to 499 pages, with a few novellas. I did not accomplish any non-fiction reading this month, completely solely fiction. Then I pretty much read all romance or romance featuring books. And then the other half was fantasy with a smattering of young adult coming of age in there. And my average rating for this month was 4.72, and I have to say, overall, of all the reading months this year, this was my best in terms of quality of reads, because I feel like every book I read this month, with the exception of maybe like one, was banger after banger. I had 3 5-star reads this month. 3. That is just like, granted, I'm a generous rater, but you'll see how I got along there. And my average number of pages read this month was around 2,600 if you exclude the other book I read. So it's more like 2,900. So let's hop into the first book I read this month. We kicked off the month with something super spicy, and that was Silver Foxed by Kayla Gross. This is another one of her super spicy erotic novellas. I'm probably just going to say all of these novellas from her that I have talked about and read, I'm just going to give it a blanket of 5 chili spice warning, because they're all pretty much erotic novels, so there's a lot in there just for your information. Obviously, with the title of Silver Fox, this is definitely an age gap novella. So I can't remember the girl's name, but it follows this woman, plus size woman, all of her books are plus size FMCs, who is, going out of her way, spending a weekend at her father's, lake house to, get over kind of, the sad, gloomy days that she's been having. And while she's there, she happens to find out that her dad and mom didn't communicate, so her dad booked his employee/best friend to stay at the lake house over the weekend, and his name is Elijah. And, sexy things ensue from there. The age gap here is 30 and 45, so it's not as egregious to me. But yeah, definitely age gap, very kinky, very erotic. Love these. This was a 4.5 star. I think I prefer her other 2 that I've read, which was Trick Shot and then Puck Shy. Those are the ones. Those are her holiday spicy novellas if you're looking for that, and those are interconnected. This one is not. But it's a fun, spicy read if that's what you're looking for. Then I finally read the Book Talk famous book, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And, this one is going to be a little hard for me to, explain the story, but, I'll get into it. This is a adult gothic romantasy series. So for laying out the magic system, explain it. Shepherd King, years and years before, made a deal with the, Spirit of the Wood situation. And this deal was that the Spirit of the Wood would grant them these cards, these kind of playing card-esque things, and every time anyone who held it and tapped it would be granted these magical powers. However, the Shepherd King was greedy and he went a little too far, so now the Spirit of the Wood is like, screw you, I am going to throw this mist over the entire kingdom, and anyone who walks in the mist will never come out alive. So 500 years later, anyone who gets infected with the magic disease is now being killed by the Rowan King. Elspeth Spindle gets infected. She manages to evade capture. And then, we start out the book with her being sort of found out by the King's Guard, the person, destined to kill her. And adventure and fantasy ensues from there. This book is only one singular POV, Elspeth, and then in the second book we have 3 POVs, Elspeth, Raven, who is the captain of the guard, and then Elm, who is the prince, or the Rowan prince. So yeah, I will say this book follows one main romance and the second book follows another romance. The second book really knew how to give you the crumbs of Elspeth's story and then go to Elm. She really knew how to swerve in the other direction. But this one was very good. I gave it 4.75 stars. I gave the second book 5 stars. I definitely think it's like a 5-star duology overall. However, I definitely called, like, I feel like if you were perceiving anything that was happening, you kind of guessed, like, a little bit of the plot twist that was happening here, but everything else kind of got me. It got me. I was definitely interested in how she did her little, like, weaving the stories and some of the choices she made. So I know some people are going to be thrown off by the decisions of, like, the storyline and, like, the romance in the second book, but overall, I thought it was very good. Then we have the 4th book in the Windy City series, and that is Play Along by Liz Tomford. So this one is one of my most anticipated reads of the year. We all know how I feel about the Windy City series. I have 2 5-star reads in this series. Unfortunately, this is a 4.75-star read, so almost there, but not quite. This is a marriage of convenience / married in Vegas storyline following Isaiah, who is the brother of Kai in book 3 and also an MLB baseball player, and Kennedy, who is an athletic trainer on the baseball team that they are playing with. Isaiah years ago fell in love with Kennedy at like first sight. However, Kennedy was engaged at the time, but Kennedy's not engaged anymore 3 years later, and once Isaiah realized that, he is just like, I'm going to end up with this girl. And then one night, drunk in Vegas, by happenstance, Kennedy's like, what if we just, like, happen to get married to, like, piss off, like, my ex-fiancé and his new fiancé? And Isaiah's like, you sure? And he's like, well, I can't say no to you. And things go on from there. And this one is just fun. You will say this is definitely going to discuss discrimination in the workplace, and there is trauma discussed in here, so maybe check your trigger warnings. This is the shortest one of the Windy City so far, and I thought it was really great, but I think in my brain I'm like, I might need just a little more plot, because it kind of felt a bit like some of the same things were happening, but the found family was absolutely brilliant. And did I tear up a little? Yes. Did I tear up not in relationship to the romance in this book? Yes, I teared up in relation to the found family, but that's another one, but still highly recommend. I definitely think it goes maybe Right Move, Caught Up, Play Along, Mile High, kind of my ranking. I don't know. Then we have the 5-star series that swept the year for me, the Mead Mishaps series, and this is the 3rd book, That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. So in this book, this one is dual PV, the first one isn't, but the second and third one are. In this one, we're following Dante, who we were introduced to for the first time in the first book, then we got to know him a little more in the second book, but this one is his book, and he is a slightly older dragon who has kind of survived the big war and everything, and now he's like noticing all these young dragons getting all the love, and he's like, I want to find my fated mate. So he sets out on an adventure, and when he stops at a friend's like little retreat, he discovers his fated mate there in the form of Cherry, who has been missing from her homeland for years. She's been captured by this, elder dragon that Dante is coming to visit, and then one like drug-induced stupor, he accidentally captures or kidnaps her back to his palace, even though he wasn't trying. And you know what? They go on this random little funny, silly adventure. I love these books. They're all funny, silly, super spicy, just really cute. And I highly recommend them if you're just looking for, like, fun romantasy. So definitely pick this one up if you're interested in the series. Then we have A Whole Song and Dance. Now, this was a book that I started back in, like, May, I'm pretty sure. If you know anything about my reading year so far, like, for basically the whole month of May, I was slumped out reading-wise. So I DNF this or soft DNF this and then re-picks it back up this month. I think that may have affected my feelings on this one. I did give it 4 stars. This is a YA coming-of-age novel that follows Nazreen, who has gotten into the Tisch School of Performing Arts and NYU, a very prestigious performing arts school. However, her parents think that she is going to the very prestigious business school, and she is spending her whole time there trying to figure out a way to like build up her confidence and her resume to present to her parents that this was a good idea. So she gets hired onto a web series. She takes statistics to try to prove to her parents that she, is kind of, doing it all. She tries to double major. Along the way, she meets new friends, she meets her first romance, and things like that. I thought it was a very good book. If you are a theater kid or a former theater kid, this one will have you, giggling with the theater romances. But I definitely think that my experience, I think it's hit or miss with YA coming of ages for me now and again. And you'll kind of see that with another book that I read this month that I really enjoyed that's kind of YA coming of age. But yeah, this one isn't super romance forward, so definitely look more at the coming of age aspect of this one, but definitely interesting. Vampires never get old. It says Tales with Fresh Bite. I love it. I love it. This is by various authors, but is edited, or yeah, I think it's edited by Zoraida Cordova and Natalie C. Parker. I'm sure I mispronounced someone's name here. This is a series of short stories written by multiple authors, all focusing on like YA vampire retellings, reimaginings, or takes on the vampire myth. This also has a queer BIPOC focus on pretty much all of the stories, and if you're a fan of Netflix's show First Kill, the novel, like short story that inspired that is this in this one. However, it is the last short story in here, so you gotta read through all of them. Well, I guess you don't have to read through all of them, but you know, if you read them in order, you have to read through all of them to get there. This one was everything I wanted. I'm not usually a I'm not usually a vampire girly. Like, I think the days of Vampire Diaries and Twilight have jaded me. Those are not my vibe when it comes to, like, romantic vampire things. But this one definitely had me. It definitely had some darker moments in it that I wasn't quite expecting. There was romance in here. I think you have to tell. I think the only thing that, you know, kept me wanting was that there were so many stories in here. I'm like, I'm gonna need a sequel. I'm gonna need a sequel, because you just like cut off at the moment. I'm like, well, what happens next? Like, what happens next? I gave it 4.75 stars, but you know, if I really think about it, it could be a 5-star read. Definitely highly recommend if you're into that vampires thing. Also, I think there's a mermaid version of this that's recently come out, and you know how I feel about mermaids, or if you don't, huge fan of mermaids. So I have a feeling I'm going to love that one. Now, when I said why coming of age was hit or miss for me, this book was the absolute hit. This book was the last book I was able to finish in the month of July, because after I finished it, I had to take a moment to recenter myself, because it just had me good. Now, am I saying everything is absolutely perfect in this book? Maybe not. There were some things I had questions about, but is it still a 5-star read? Yes. Did it make me cry? Absolutely. Did You're on Your Own Kid come on the playlist at the exact moment it needed to when I was reading this? Abso-freaking-lutely. I mean, you see this cover right here? You're picturing Dolly Parton, and then you got some like Taylor Swift-esque songwriting things in there, and it's just like, oh my gosh. Now I'll tell you what it's about. So this is Every Time You Hear That Song by Jenna Voris. So this is her second novel. I'm curious to read what her first novel's like. This is a queer coming-of-age story following a dual timeline. So in the present timeline, we're following Darren, who is in the small town of Mayberry, and she's doing her best to find a way out of that. And her favorite artist in the whole world is this big-time country artist from the 70s and 80s, Deckley Castle. And Deckley Castle has recently passed away and has issued this contest for her fans to go on to find her final last recorded album. And Darren takes this call, and she brings along one of her friends, Kendall. And you know, romance ensues from there, but a whole lot of other things. And Darren is bisexual. In the past timeline, we're following Deckley Castle's rise to fame from her first time leaving Mayberry, which is the same hometown as Darren, to rising and starting and meeting her best friend, who ends up becoming her designer for all of her award shows, and her future love, which was McKinley Hooper, who also becomes her songwriting partner, and following her struggling with her rise to fame and her not being out to the public and not wanting to risk her career for coming out, and McKinley and everyone sort of suffering at the hands of that. And man, was it a great read. Man, did I feel so many things while reading this, and man, did I just want to yell at some people the entire time. Oh, if you're looking for like some catharsis, I don't know. But yeah, this was a cute queer coming of age story, and I highly, highly recommend. I kind of want to pick up the other author's book now, or the other book the author has out. So let me know what your favorite reads of the month of July were. What should I be picking up next, and what videos would you like to see coming soon?